I mean, how do I describe it? It's
Bold.
A light.
Black.
unapologetically black.
Very funny, amusing.
Caring.
You give great advice from a different perspective. Passionate.
Free.
Vulnerable.
A creative.
Sexy.
My girl is lit as fuck.
Always ready to twerk a little something.
Genuine, very genuine.
Resilient.
Like Sixth Sense, otherworldly. If you know, you know.
It's so vibrant, baby. Hello, everyone, and you are tuned in to Soul Vibrant, the place where music, history, and culture collide. I am your host, Lady AC, and did you miss me? Oh my god, because I missed y'all, and it's so good to be back here for a whole new season, because man, January wasn't finna get up out of here, was she? Oh my goodness, because y'all, it's only been a month. It's only been a month in 2025, and I feel like we lived through 3 lifetimes just in that 1 month, at least from me perspective. And I'm saying emotionally, physically, and mentally, we witnessed, experienced, been through so much. And I really do feel, unfortunately, that's by design, because the more we're disoriented, the more we're burnt out, the more we're overwhelmed, the more we are in a state of confusion and just knee-jerk reactions. Those knee-jerk reactions that I talked about last season, the more we're in that season of that, where we are easily able to submit to what is being done to us. We're less likely to want to fight back. We're less likely wanting to cause change. We're less likely wanting to put any kind of effort to have anything done, because you're so weighed down by all those emotions and feelings and experiences. You don't want to make a choice to, you don't want to make the choice to the change. You just want to be still. You just want to be silent. But if you sit in that kind of silence, that does eat away at you. So I think, if anything, moving forward in this year, this is definitely a time for us to say what we mean and mean what we say. This is a time to tell our sides of the story, to tell our stories, period. We have to be the historians, the educators, the communicators, the critics, the writers. We have to be the ones that want to preserve and keep this culture, our cultures, vibrant and alive. Shout out to Mac Miller Park. Sitting with the elders that I talked to and my ancestors, and seeing how they respond to what's going on, it helped me learn something very powerful. And they said that they already taught us how to survive this. The gift they gave us through their experience is that now it's our job, us, the descendants, to live. As a result, that kind of inspired today's show, and today's show is titled "The South Always Has Something to Say." Because if you can't tell by my way I talk, your girl is a Georgia peach. But I'm going to dive a little bit more deep into that a little bit later in the podcast. But first, we're going to get into our first musical break. And I'm excited about my musical breaks this month, because all of the songs are about love from the Black perspective. So, hope you enjoy it.
And boy, you're like my favorite pastime.
I'm hoping you don't make me wait too long, 'cause you're the only thing my mind's been on. Imagine this, you make believe. I hope one day you're what I see. Take me to a secret place where we can be face to face. Hand in hand, it's not a tease. I need much more, so buy me, please. And it's really life that got me by surprise. Feeling you is right, and searching for it. I'll wait for your love to catch me. I'll wait for your love, wait for your love.
And that was Br.xx with Adventure Time. And shout out to Nia, another Georgia peach right there. An amazing independent artist as well. And collectively transitions me into our topic of today of talking about how the South always had something to say. Because it does. And I think sometimes it gets overshadowed with, like everything, with perceptions and assumptions made by characteristics of what's going on throughout different cultures. But what's important is to remember in that is who is telling the story. Because a lot of people who tend to talk about and what we honestly try to see, especially within these last recent years, a lot of people are just, and this remind me of actually my episode last year of just talking ish with a purpose. There are a lot of people out here just talking and have no idea what they're talking about. But they're either just talking because they like their voice, or they're talking out the side of their neck because they have a platform to do so. And a lot of those people are the ones that tend to share misinformation, to create narratives that inform, honestly, kind of influence their own biases and their own misconceptions, and continue to share and just uplift just things that are just honestly just wrong and not right. And I started to see that when it comes to the conversation of the influence of the South. Especially back in December. I don't know if you guys knew about it, but I'll for my people who don't, particularly, especially with Beyonce, when she did that performance on Netflix, this conversation started to kind of happen. Like what I'm talking about, that happened because, and just for anybody who wasn't aware, so Beyonce came out with an album, Cowboy Carter, basically as an amazing FU to all the people who told her she wasn't country enough, she wasn't southern enough. You know, they were just kind of looking at her work before, and and they really kind of dissed her, especially with the CMA incident where they let her perform that one song, and then they never highlighted her again, or basically never invited her back. And so she took that and she really dug back into her Southern roots, being a girl from Houston. She had like the different colors, and she made sure she had the black and white cowboy and cowgirls, and she had like the Miss Juneteenth and the Miss I think she was like the Miss Rodeo pageant queen. I can't remember her name, and I'm sorry if I butchered that, but it was just beautiful to see that sector of Southern blackness to be highlighted in such a major way, honestly. But as a result of that, a lot of people took that as a time to really kind of come at the South a certain kind of way. And whether they felt some way about the album, or they felt some way about Beyonce, who knows? But what happened as a result, there were a lot of people just talking out the side of their neck, like I said, when it came to the South. And that really made me think, to look at it objectively and to look at it from a different lens, is that a lot of that is because a lot of people are speaking from their perceptions. They're speaking from their understanding. A lot of people making these comments ain't even from the South. Weren't even from the South. Never been to the South. Or they maybe drove through it, or they visit family from it. It reminded me of one of my favorite African proverbs that says, until the lion tells their side, the story will always glorify the hunt or the hunter. And as a result of that, that's what I felt was happening with this conversation when it came to the image of the South, or the criticism in a way she received, not being, Southern enough, country enough. Because there are black people in the country. Hello, you're listening to one of them. There are black people that, had to stay behind. And I know it aired, by the time this podcast comes out, the documentary should be out. But PBS just did a documentary about the Great Migration, which basically was when, due to the racism and the challenges that black people felt in the South after slavery, a lot of black people in these southern states moved up north, and they called that the Great Migration. And I talked a little bit about this last season, but I want to use this episode to kind of dive more deeper into that. I feel like the shift where it comes to talking about black culture, black history, tends to leave the South out, because they basically follow the Great Migration and then gotta go from there. But the reality is, not everybody could have left the South. Not everybody did leave the South, or it probably even couldn't afford to leave the South. So there are a lot of people still here in Mississippi, still in Alabama, still here in Georgia, still in South Carolina, still in North Carolina. Still in Texas. There are black people who stayed and had to thrive and create cultures and live in that. And what came out of that is what I want to highlight and talk about today. But I think the major issue is that those stories don't always get told. In my opinion, they rarely get told unless somebody from there chooses to go back and talk about it and research. And that's honestly what led me to do Mac Miller Park, because, growing up in Georgia, in the small town area in the South, all my life, I never knew that history. And to find out especially how closely connected to that I would have never found that out if I just didn't have that curious mind of mine to research and dig and to find that history. And it just showed me how beautiful of a story that needed to be said. And in that moment, and honestly, that whole experience, even still to this moment now, I really understand that it is important to speak and say these stories. It really is important to talk about and give the perspective of the South. Because there's so much sometimes hidden in plain sight history that's here that we have to let out. We have to tell, because one of the reasons it's important is, for one, it builds connection. it builds connection because in two different ways. One, it builds connection to the culture, then it builds our connection into the people who live here. Because sometimes in the South, the South gets a lot of flack when it comes to education, when it comes to crime, when it comes to understanding politics or political views or different things. Because a lot of people look at, especially like for instance, looking at this administration, a lot of people who voted against their own interests were in the South, but that doesn't negate all the other states that voted red that are up north and Midwest and all that. But for some reason, the South is always the vocal point of that. And that is because a lot of people associate the South with those things, with that perspective, with that mindset. And so with telling our stories and telling our culture, we show the generations that grew up here that learned that the way that we learned, or the way, or the people that we are around, or the people or the concepts or the beliefs that we grew up need to change. And there are individuals that live in these areas that believe that are pushing for that change, that are fighting for that change, that are advocating for that change, and their stories deserve to be told. Like, for instance, once again, and I'm going to use Mac Miller Park as a vocal point for a lot of that, to find out, that in that moment, Mac Miller Park was thriving during segregation. And it was born out of that. Because Georgia was so hard and so committed to staying segregated. Like, I mean, they were having, like, discussions, like, it was a political platform, segregation was in Georgia at the time Mac Miller Park existed or was coming about. They were so gung-ho on keeping segregation here, like, to the point, like, I think they had like a major election, like I think it was supposed to be like a governor election as well, and the running and the candidates, like the running mates running against each other, like they were running platforms basically like, no, I'm going to be the one to make sure I'm gonna keep segregation alive. No, I'm gonna make sure it's gonna keep it alive. And like they had, like, that was their political plans, was keeping it alive and how they're gonna do that, and this one was gonna be better than this one. But in that, I saw one article that showed the black side of segregation. And that one article was, the citizens had created a petition to send to the governor, to send to the cities, to basically say, like, you know what, if that's what will keep peace and keep us safe, then okay, we agree with segregation, but we want it to be equal. And I thought that was it was powerful in the sense of, like, look, we are just trying to live this. We are just trying to go day to day. We just want to work, enjoy our families, and just be. If y'all want to keep us separated, have that. But we want to do it in a place where we can be educated, where, we ain't got to worry about, inequity and in having housing and having work, being able to support ourselves, support our families. Overall, I think integration was going to happen because eventually we were all going to mix in, because that was honestly the whole point of America to begin with, right? The melting pot, right? We were supposed to do that, but this whole conversation of mixing became such a deal about safety when it came from the black perspective. And I thought that was very interesting, especially for it to be highlighted. But I would say, once again, if it wasn't for me finding that and me telling you this now, because how many of y'all knew that before I just said that? But that's why I'm like, these kind of things need to be told. These kind of things need to be said, so we are aware that there have always been very different perspectives, very different It honestly explains the way things are and the way people, why people sit in certain ways, or why they think certain ways, or why they vote certain ways, why they move certain ways, is because of that. Another reason it's important to tell our side or to tell our stories is the most important one, to control the narratives. Because for me, the biggest issue when it comes to the conversation of the South and storytelling in relation to just with anything in the South is that a lot of people who are telling that story are not even from here. A lot of people who have control of the narrative aren't born and bred, like I said. So they're always, and most likely when you don't know about something, you know what you think of it. And that's what they lead with. They lead with the stereotypes. They lead with, the fact, like, most of us, don't have proper English, or we speak different way, or we take the endings off our words and put apostrophes, and even if we do, and and that's just I can't help, I got that southern twang when I say certain things. Okay, let me stop. But I'm proud of my twang, okay? But another way to look at connection is it builds our connection to the places that we live at, to the place that our families live at, to the places where, in some cases, especially in my small town, where people have lived for generations. There are generations tied to these lands that are connected ancestrally to these lands, because it makes you value where you come from. It makes you honor where you come from and who you come from. So you're less likely to want to cause harm there. You're less likely wanting to sell off things to other people who ain't from there. You're less likely wanting to, I think it's important to leave, but you're less likely not wanting to just desert it and never come back and want nothing to do with it. I can give grace on, because of course, some people don't want to deal with the violence and don't want to deal, like, especially in that time of Mac Miller Park and segregation and Jim Crow and everything. I can understand, I can give grace in those cases, because none of them, period, deserved. Our ancestors didn't deserve any of what happened to them, what they went through, what they were going through. I want to make that clear. None of them deserved that, period. However, if they continue to live here, they know that that was something they were going to have to put up with. And as a result, they created ways and cultures and movements and methods in order to navigate that safely, or as safely as possible as they could. However, I also feel that going through something like that, it makes you more attached to, like, no, this is mine. I survived this, so I'm owed this. Like, this is my birthright to be here, because I put so much in being here. And that's what those stories do. For instance, come in before street lights come on. That one was based off of the history of the sundown towns. Basically, where if black people in certain places, especially in the South, if certain places, we couldn't be out past a certain time, or we were susceptible to unimaginable violence or hatred, or of them just not wanting us there or being there. So by the time, so you knew, at least by the time the street lights or the lamp lights or whatever kind of lights they had back then, by the time the sun went down, that was your alert to know, oh, I need to be out of here. Oh, I should have been home. Oh, I need to get inside. And as a result, over time, that became now, your grandma would tell you, if you were playing outside with your friends or the people in the neighborhood, you're playing with the people in the neighborhood, and they tell you, all right, y'all, come in by the street light. Y'all know you're not supposed to be out here. Well, at least that was in my case. We knew when that street light came on down the road, we had to be in the house. But just to know the history of that, like if somebody never talked about that and never told that, we would never knew that connection. I'm not going to be unrealistic and not realize, things like poverty, systematic racism, environmental racism, educated policing aren't factors, because they are. But I also feel that as a looking at it from a personal perspective, as what we as an individual can control in those things, what we can control, what we can control is ourselves. And if you as an individual don't understand the importance of where you are, if you don't understand the importance of where you're from, you don't see value in where you're from, it is very easy to not think nothing of it. The reason it's important for us to share our stories, and why it's important for especially in the South, for our history, our voice to be heard, is because it also illustrates a will of change. Because despite how some things are still the same and some people still operate, there are organizations, individuals, communities that are constantly changing the narrative of what the South is. Just the beauty that, for instance, going back, Beyonce showed with the cowboys and the cowgirls, and just the beautiful melanin, the smiles and the pageantry and the essence to, and just showing that culture of Houston. That's beautiful. Just here, for instance, in Georgia, just showing, the brilliance of Auburn Avenue, and which existed during Martin Luther King's time, and just the thriving of Black communities, and just the togetherness of that, the thriving of Mac Miller Park, and just showing how, Black people were able to come together in fellowship and joy and love and play sports and swim and and do all these things that, that are counter to the narratives of that, and really find a place where they could be themselves and really let their hair down, really get close in some places, and really show that it show. And then they were able to carry that into, for the decades that, the park existed. It really shows that we have the ability to change the environments, our perspectives, and the things that are around us. I'm an example of that. I grew up and raised and born here, but I'm here talking on this podcast about the possibilities of change. I'm able to talk about, offer different perspectives and insights that I learned, that I have grown into changing. So just the fact, that I exist lets me know there are others out there that can exist and promote different changes and different views and different goals and different ways of thinking and moving. But that doesn't happen until we start talking. What brings me to my final point is that the importance of telling our stories is the fact that it gets us just talking. It gets us just talking and telling what needs to be told. Our voice matters, but nobody will know that if you don't start talking. What I discovered when it came, for instance, with Mac Miller Park, is that a lot of the stories were kept with the now elders that were teenagers or young folks that enjoyed that park. That a lot of them, didn't think the younger generation was interested, or, you know, they thought, you know, they couldn't connect with other people to tell what was going on. Or there were people who, you know, I don't want to say gatekeep, because that's kind of a strong word, but I would say for their reasons, such as, you know, with safety, with wanting to protect family, wanting to, you know, not cause any trouble. That for all those various reasons, though, they kept that information to themselves, and they kept their stories with them. And when you keep that, the people who don't want you to talk about it, the people who don't want these versions, these stories, this history out, they're able to manipulate it and to tell it their way. Or in the case of, you know, me doing Mac, they're able to discard it. They're able to build up on it or build around it and literally act like it doesn't exist. We cannot afford, especially now, to be covered up. We can't afford now to be silent. We can't afford now to not stand for something. And the best way for us to do that is to start talking and tell our side. There's one thing about the Black culture, and that's regardless whatever region you're from, that word of mouth, that oral tradition is what kept us going. When all those people migrated up north, they remembered the South. They took with them what they had in the South and made it up there. The people who couldn't leave, they took what they did here and they flourished and pushed, and they survived. Because sometimes just surviving is just good enough. Just being is just good enough. They took that and they made it here. And all of that has to be honored.
Baby, you're perfect. Don't let no one tell you otherwise. That's why I can give it the butterflies. Mesmerized, mesmerized by you. Tell me how it feels to fall in love behind the wheel. You make it hard for me to focus. Baby, you're glowing and I notice. You don't like to play. You don't bite your tongue when you got things to say. And I like it that way. Baby, you're perfect. Don't let no one tell you otherwise. That's why I can give it the butterflies. Mesmerized, mesmerized by you. What you say to me, it matters 'cause you're more than my security. The fact is I get lost just when you look at me. You act in ways that drives me crazy. It's things that you do, you show up and prove I can be yours forever. And if I had to, I'd choose you. Baby, you're perfect. Don't let no one tell you otherwise. That's why I can give it the butterflies. Mesmerized, mesmerized by you.
And that was Butterflies by Isaiah Falls and Joyce Wrice. So if you don't get nothing else from this podcast episode, if you get nothing else, I want you to leave with this. Please start telling your stories. Please start documenting, recording, writing. Just speak. Speak on it. Because that's how we truly stay alive. And keep it alive. All right, y'all. Well, that is it for me. Once again, I enjoy being back. And I can't wait to continue to see what unfolds in life. Because like I said at the very beginning, at the very top of the show, I'm sorry. Our ancestors taught us how to survive this. Our elders taught us how to survive this. And they did that because now it's our job to take up the reins, to pick up where they left off and live. So if you want to connect with me, I am on all social medias except TikTok, because I ain't falling for that mess for me. If you own it, hey, still be on it. But for me, I was like, that y'all being a little too messy with that. So I am on all social medias. For Facebook.com, it is Queen Lady AC. For Instagram, I am, it's _ I am Lady AC. And I am still on Twitter, because mama call it Twitter. I'm gonna call it Twitter, but everybody call it X. So anyway, on Twitter X, it is I am Lady AC. All right, until next week, y'all. And I'm excited for it. And the rest of the season. Tell your stories. Keep the culture alive. All right, bye.